Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation or SAM versus Commissioner of Internal Revenue or CIR. Facts. Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation or SAM, a government-owned and controlled corporation or GOCC established under Republic Act Number 9136, Electric Power Industry Reform Act of 2001 or EPIRA, was mandated to manage the privatization of the National Power Corporation's or NPC assets to liquidate its financial obligations. In line with this mandate, some sold two hydroelectric power plants, the Pantabangan-Masiway and Magat plants, to private entities through public bidding. Subsequently, the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR assessed some with a deficiency value added tax or VAT amounting to approximately 3.8 billion, asserting that the sales were subject to VAT. Some contested this assessment, arguing that the transaction were a governmental function not conducted in the course of trade or business, thus exempt from VAT under Section 105 of the National Internal Revenue Code or NIRC. Some filed a petition with the Department of Justice, which ruled in its favor, declaring the VAT assessment null and void. The BIR challenged the DOG's jurisdiction, and the Court of Appeals nullified the DOG's decision, stating that tax disputes fall under exclusive jurisdiction of the CIR and the Court of Tax Appeals (CTA). Some then elevated the matter to the Supreme Court. Issues. First, whether the DOG had jurisdiction to resolve the dispute between some and the BIR. Second, whether or not the doctrine of exhaustion of administrative remedies was applicable. Last, whether the sale of the power plants by some was subject to what rulings. First, on the questions of DOG's jurisdiction, the Supreme Court held that under Presidential Decree Number 242, disputes solely between government agencies or GOCCs involving questions of law must be administratively settled by the DOJ. Since both SAM and the BIR are government entities and the issue was purely legal, example, the taxability of the asset sale, the DOJ had proper jurisdiction. Doctrine of exhaustion of administrative remedies. The court emphasized that while the doctrine generally requires parties to exhaust all administrative remedies before seeking judicial intervention, it does not apply when the issue pertains to a purely legal question. In this case, the dispute centered on the legal interpretation of tax laws, making the doctrine inapplicable. Third, VAT exemption. The court ruled that Sam's sale of the power plants was not in the course of trade or business. Defined under Section 105 of the NIRC, the sales were part of the governmental function mandated by law and thus not subject to VAT. The court distinguished from transaction conducted by entities engaged in regular commercial activities. Doctrine of exhaustions of administrative remedies. This doctrine mandates that individual must first utilize all available administrative avenues before resorting to judicial intervention. However, exemptions exist particularly when the issue is purely legal, administrative remedies are inadequate or futile, there is an urgent need for judicial intervention. The administrative agency is in estoppel. The action is patently illegal or unconstitutional. There is unreasonable or oppressive delay. Due process is violated. No administrative review is provided by law. the rule of qualified political agency applies. In Sum versus CIR, the Supreme Court recognized that the issue was purely legal, thus falling under the exceptions to the doctrine. Conclusion: the Supreme Court reversed the CA's decision, reinstated that the DOJ's ruling, and held that the sale of the power plant by some was not subject to VAT. This case underscores the importance of adhering to prescribed administrative remedies and clarifies the jurisdictional boundaries between administrative agencies and courts. It also delineates the scope of VAT applicability concerning government mandated asset privatization. Thank you.